Coach Jane, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So excited to have you today. So I was stoked to get you on. I was stoked that you had time because obviously you're not local, so it's hard to get people that aren't local to be on the show. So it kind of worked out with playoffs and everything. Well, before we get started, what I'd love to do is just have you give us a little bit of background about yourself. So kind of introduce yourself, where you grew up, how you got into your sport, how you ended up getting into coaching, and then we can kind of go from there.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me. This is really cool. I grew up in Florida, actually, and I played for a small club. So out in Southern California, you have these massive clubs. My club, we only had teams every other age group. So I played up, but it wasn't because I was so good. It was just because that was what was available in my small hometown. My parents didn't know a whole lot about really any sports. My mom was a cheerleader, so soccer, she signed us up for because my sister and I were close in age. I had an amazing coach. If I didn't have my coach, I don't think I would have made it to where I am as a coach or as a player. I ended up in college at Duke University. Things were different back in my day. ODP was really big, and so that's how I met the coach of Duke. And then after Duke, I went to grad school. I taught for 3 years in the program Teach for America. So I taught first, second, third grades, and I also taught 10th grade during summer school. I get a little nervous. So.
No, you're good.
You can cut it there.
No, you're good.
And then after that, I actually worked a corporate job for about 6 months. And then I was like, I cannot do this. I can't sit in the office. So I would work in my hometown, and then I would go in and play in at the club, or I would go and coach. And my coach was like, do you want to be a coach? And I said, no, I never want to be a coach. And then he said, well, I have a U10 girls team that I really need a coach for. Can you come out? And I was like, well, I'll do it because it's like 3 more months, but I don't think I'm going to like it, and I don't want to deal with parents. And he's like, well, just do a little presentation, set your boundaries, and then just really give in to the kids and do the best you can. And he said, you know what? People actually think you're a really good coach. And I was like, seriously? I'm just like filling in here. I enjoyed the younger ones because I was a teacher. And so I felt like I was really good with that age group. And then after that, he said, we actually need a coach for U11s. And I was like, not this again. And so I said, okay, I'll do the U11s. And then he said, we need a coach for the U16C team. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And then it kind of kept going from there. So I had 4 teams, coached club for a while. After that, I knew I wanted to get into college. So I volunteered for a little bit of time at my alma mater and worked with my coach, learned from him and his assistants. And then I had a family situation, so I actually had to go back home. So I started coaching with my coach again. I did that for a few years, and then there was a volunteer position at UCLA. So I said, okay, it's LA. It is usually the volunteer was for goalkeeping coaches, but this one was for field players. So I said, all right, it's a great foot in the door. I don't know how I'll survive in LA, but I got to coach club, and I actually loved the club that I was at. It was at LA Breakers. And then from there, as assistants started to leave, I put in more time at UCLA. I got promoted to an assistant coach. Then during COVID, actually, more coaches kept leaving for great opportunities. And then my boss ended up leaving and taking a professional opportunity. So I was not in the market at the time to be a head coach. It was really just happenstance, and I wanted to stay in California, didn't know what to do. So I wrote an email to USC, and I said, I'm looking for a position on your soccer staff. And I didn't specify, I didn't even say head coach. And they emailed me back and said, can we interview you? And I said, yeah, of course. Still kind of unsure. I'm like, they must be interviewing me for head coach because you don't typically do it in this order for an assistant. And then after the first Zoom interview, I was like, so do they decide the job? And then I got a follow-up, and I had to interview with about 15 associate ADs, which was really intimidating. And then after that, when I was offered the job, the very next morning, they wanted me to address the team. And overnight, I went from assistant, which is sometimes very behind the scenes, to head coach, which is very in front, having to make the hard decisions, having to kind of do a lot of things outside of my comfort zone, which now, almost 4 years in, I'm a lot more comfortable and maybe good at. Hopefully, I try to always make the best choices I can, but it's been a really weird and probably unconventional road for me.
Yeah, I mean, just listening to that, what was the time frame from college assistant at Duke to head coach at USC? Just because that went fast. Like in my mind, it seemed like it went really fast.
It did. So actually, when I started at Duke, I wasn't even an assistant coach. I was a volunteer director of operations. So, like in total, I've been coaching about 12 years.
Okay.
But I did teach right after college. That's when I first got into coaching, more like after school, kids that either played or didn't play. It wasn't competitive at all. But yeah, Duke, and then I was at home for about 3 years, and then I went to UCLA. And I was at UCLA for 4 years.
Okay.
So I went from about a year and a half of volunteer, 2 years as a real assistant, doing a little bit of recruiting, but still fairly new. I was actually second assistant, so I wasn't the first assistant, to the point where I figured probably I would not get the job at UCLA because I was second assistant.
Right.
And then I was like, wow, USC's considering me for an opportunity. So I've been really, really fortunate, and I recognize that, and there's a lot of privilege in that. But yeah, hopefully I just went in and tried to work as hard as I possibly could and make sure that I made the university proud because they invested and kind of took a risk on me.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's wow. I didn't know. This is the great thing about having the podcast is I get to learn about people, and all the people that I'm bringing in, I have a very wide net of people that I know just through relationships. It's all about relationships. So you always know you're always 6 degrees away from somebody who knows something about what you want to have. So I learn a ton on these things, which is great to hear because I didn't realize that the ascension of you from a regular, assistant coach to being a head coach was not that huge of a jump, which is great. I mean, a lot of times people are people are in a situation or a position for a long time before you see a new coach. And we just saw it with Anson. He was there for 40-something years, I think, where now he's gone. For obvious reasons, you want to keep that guy around because he's very successful at what he does. But at the same time, you don't usually see as much young blood, so to speak, come into the coaching profession. So it's nice to see that schools are taking that on, and it's becoming a new kind of a trend. Because you do see a lot of new coaches that are out there that are now breaking through and having their own names and getting an opportunity to be a head coach. So that's kind of cool. The reason why I really wanted to have you on is because I really want to have parents understand from a coach's perspective, because all these kids and these parents are wanting to be recruited. They want to play at Division I schools. That's the dream for any athlete at any sport for the most part. But just parents, a lot of times what I've realized going through the process just recently myself with my daughter is that there's no book. There's no way to figure out what to do. There's just people saying this and people saying that, and you got to kind of figure it out for yourself. So I figured, okay, having a coach on that's at that level can kind of shed some light on what are the things that you're looking for. Now, we all know that you're looking for great players, right? Ball skills, all that kind of stuff. Outside of the ball skills, like what are some of the things that you look for in a recruit? Like what are some staples or characteristics or habits you're looking for in the people that you're recruiting for your team?
I'm a very optimistic coach, but I will say I have to plan for when things go wrong in terms of you're going to probably lose a game, hopefully not many. Someone might not make a lineup. Something might happen that's difficult in someone's life. So definitely a team-first mentality, somebody who has resiliency, and somebody who really, really loves the game. Because at the end of the day, like what we do is hard. As players, as coaches, you have to pour in every single day. Nobody wants to be around a teammate who can't give everything or doesn't really want to be there. So I would say someone that has that passion wants to be the best that she can be for herself, but also for her teammates, for her program, for her university or the club that she's playing for.
So a lot of it has to do with attitude.
Totally.
Okay.
Definitely.
And that's a good thing because it's a thing that we've always kind of preached to our kids is like, hey, when you're not, like, depending on the sport, like we have a soccer player, we have football players in our family. Depending upon where you are at that time, like if you're not the guy or the girl, like you need to be the best teammate you can be.
Totally.
And that's one of the things. So it's good to hear that that's what you guys are looking for because a lot of times I think parents think that their kid has to be the star. Like you have to be the star, the person scoring all the goals, scoring all the touchdowns, making all the tackles, doing whatever it is that people see as opposed to like, hey, you just need to do the best you can do and be whatever cog in that wheel of the team that you are is who you should be. Like just be the best at that. Because I mean, everybody wants their, and I've seen it. God, soccer and football are very alike when it comes to watching it from the stands.
That's funny, actually.
Soccer's much more. You're right there. Mm-hmm. Like I'm literally like yesterday's games. I'm sitting on the sideline. I can see the girls run by me, balls flying at you, and I like to sit in the middle because my daughter plays in the middle, and the middle is like the war zone for soccer because you're sitting 2 feet away from the other team's fans, and when it gets in the heat of battle, like they're going back. Football is the same way. It's like when you get into these sports, it just gets animalistic. It gets like these emotions come out, and so I've made it a point to. I don't say anything. I watch the game. And our coaches told us, and that's the one thing about soccer that I found similar to how I coached in football, which you don't usually see, is soccer coaches, they tell you at the club level, you're not to say anything on the sideline to your kid. Don't coach them. That's how our club was anyway. And I was fine with it. I was like, I don't know anything about soccer anyway. So that's a good thing for me. So, it's pretty wild to see it up front and how that works, but I'm glad that attitude and like character and things like that are things that you're actually looking for. Now, in terms of the skill set, how is it that you've seen in your career as a player and also as a coach, like what are the things that you think parents can be doing to help their athletes develop those type of skills? And in particular, what do you think are some of the most important types of skill sets that soccer players need to have?
I don't know if they do this in every sport, but I think it would apply. So in soccer, they always say the 4 corners of the game: technical, tactical, psychological, and physical. And so if you think of that, if someone's really, really high in technical, so when I coached the young ones, there was a team and I looked over and they're doing all these patterns and all the players are technically clean and you're like, oh my gosh, that team's probably going to be really good. So executing a pass, first touch, ball striking. Of course, there's the defensive side as well. So 1v1 defending. Some things include, of course, like tactical as well. So tactical is kind of ideas for the game or executing how the team would like to play. Physical is fairly straightforward, and most people can see it with their eyes, but it does come in different forms. A good example would be Elena Sampaio, our midfielder last year, who got Big Ten Midfielder of the Year. She actually, if you're looking at her top speed, is probably one of the slowest midfielders in the Big Ten. She's going to kill me for saying this. But it's remarkable how good of a footballer she is, and therefore that can carry her through, and she can play at the professional level in Sweden right now. And then when you're talking about psychological, that's sort of what we just referred to. So it could be self-confidence. It could be how does she respond when she makes a mistake. It can be how much does she love the game. Is she emotionally available to be able to pour into training? And then I guess I went over all 4 of them. But if you have one, it's not going to get you super far because you need all the others. If you have 2 or 3, okay, great. But so many people have seen like the athlete who's very physical, very fast, maybe a basketball reference. She can sprint down to the hoop, beat everybody, but can't make the layup. Right. And then you have the opposite.
So that's the technical side that she's missing.
Exactly. And then if someone's really technical on the ball, can play with both feet, all of those things, but everyone can just blow right past her, then it's not going to work. And so we look for the combination of these things, and then obviously a lot more goes into the planning. Like we have schematics going all the way up to 2029 right now. We look for 2 people in each position mostly, and sometimes you got a left back and a right back, so that would be 4 people. So the number of players that we can actually take is quite small. So we do rely on kind of knowing the clubs that play similar style to us, making sure we have good relationships, and trying to do our due diligence throughout the whole process to make sure that the player can execute what we want, but she's also going to be an amazing teammate, an awesome Trojan, do well in the classroom, kind of just keep things moving forward for the program regardless of how things are going, or takes care of business in life outside of soccer as well.
So it sounds like, that's a lot, from a parent's perspective, that's a lot going on for one person or 2 people to kind of figure out. But it seems like and this is the big thing for us, is you have to have some kind of a plan to hit those 4 different markers, right? To hit the physicality part, I think, is more available because there's trainers all over the place. However, choosing the right trainer sometimes is not the easiest thing to do, because the people, unless you have an athletic background, like someone like me, I have an athletic background, so I can take my kids through the fundamentals. And when I run the gamut of what I know, and I know they have to go to the next level, I have enough knowledge to know who I'm bringing on. Like, I can sit and watch you put my daughter through a training and know if you know what you're talking about. And if you don't, then I politely move on to the next person.
Totally.
But a lot of parents don't have that ability. So I think that's kind of difficult for them, but it's something that they have to learn to navigate if they want to get the most out of their kid. In terms of the tactical, same thing. You have to, or technical, you have to find somebody, and tactical as well, that knows what are your strengths and weaknesses of your kid? Like, what do they need to work on? And so I think parents need to realize that there's all this stuff going into it, and it's not just throw my kid in and hope that they're going to like become some great player because they're at the best club, which we all know clubs are like anything else. It's a business. They're running a business, right? They're there to make money. That's what they do. And I think that I'd love to hear your opinion on this. I've never really watched soccer until my daughter started playing it. And even the first few years, like, I wasn't heavy into it because she was 4. And I was the coach. So that I didn't know anything about soccer other than to be aggressive. So I taught her to be super physical. And that's all I knew how to do. And she was my team was the most physical team in the league. We won all the games because we were running people over. It had nothing to do with being good at soccer. And I have the videos too, which are so funny. But when I first started, like, I didn't know much about what that was. But I knew that I had to find somebody that did know what those things were. And so, and my biggest thing is when I get to a point where I don't know what I'm doing, and I know what I know, and I know what I don't know. And I think a lot of parents need to realize, like, you don't know. You may have read something, you may have seen something on social media, but you don't really know. Like, if you were being honest with yourself, you're not the expert in that. You need to go find somebody that does that. Do you find that the kids that you bring in, the parents that you're dealing with, like, are they of similar mindset as the child that you see that comes in? Or do you see some, like, I don't know how you raised this child, because talking to you guys, it's a little bit off compared to what this child's personality is. Like, what do you see in terms of the relationship between those parents and the kids? Like, are they very similar? Or are they, like, how is that? Because I know you see a lot of people and you probably talk to a lot of people. I'm just curious, like, what's the ratio?
So I think of it as always give the player a fair chance in terms of, if I didn't meet the parents, how does she present herself? What are her core values? And we don't always ask them in that way, but we're trying to make sure that she's a good person and she's going to come to the university and be somebody that people respect and people can get along with. And again, just a good teammate, good human being, good Trojan. The parents sometimes are different. I would say more times, though, you find like the parents have similar beliefs, similar values, of course, because they're in the same home and they raise the child. So if there's like major red flag, which truthfully, like, I don't see that often. I think parents are just trying to advocate for their children and love their children more than anything in the whole wide world. But we try to be fair and get to know everybody, because you could call a coach or you can get an opinion from anybody and they, oh yeah, she's great, but the parents are crazy, or she's this, and both her and the parents are going to be this way. But always, like, Sugar and I, we try to get to know the families and try to make sure, like, they understand us, we understand them. The better the relationship, probably the better things are going to go. But of course, just like you said, the club did, like, we set boundaries where we're like, mid-season, you can't be texting me 10 minutes after a game, like, why did my daughter come out at the 32nd minute? But yeah, like I try to get to understand people and know where their hearts are, and know where things are coming from. And if someone is truly, genuinely crazy, like, it's something that, you know, we deal with kind of carefully. But I would say most people, like a parent, you love your kid and you want them to be successful.
Right. In terms of that, I mean, parents need to just kind of allow. It's good that you give them an opportunity to be heard and seen before going off the opinions of someone else. Because I have heard stories about coaches not liking a child or not liking a family, or for whatever reason. And you know, it's a long relationship. We've been with our club for, God, I want to say like maybe 6 years now. I have to lose track. There's some, we've been with only 3 clubs, but since she's 4 to 17, it's been 3 clubs. So we've been there for a long time. But a lot of I've heard a lot of horror stories about parents, like, and some of them deserve it, but it's nice to hear that coaches are actually going to tell the other coaches. So our club coaches are going to let the college coaches know kind of what they're dealing with. Because I think some people think that there's, like, they can be however they want to be with one coach and it's not going to affect their child. Well, it might. It might. And it sounds like to you, to your credit, is that at least you give that person the benefit of the doubt so that you can at least hear their side of the story. Because there's always two sides of the story.
Totally.
When it comes to something like that. In terms of recruitment now, there's a big thing going on called social media in the last few years. I really want to know what your take is on how it affects your recruiting, how you utilize it as a tool, and are there any like red flags of things that you see on social media that parents should be talking to their kids about?
It's funny because I now feel like I'm kind of at the age where I'm asking my players, like, how do I put this title there? How do I do the
You're
collage?
officially old.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not that good at it. We don't use it in depth in terms of every recruit. We're looking at social media, but we do use it to see who they are. We want to make sure that they love the game. Again, I feel like I'm saying the same things, but if their social media has 0 soccer pictures and they don't even look like an athlete, then you're like, okay, is this really the person that's going to come and drive the program to the next level? Most players, like, their social media is actually like quite good in terms of they post stuff from the ECNL, and that's way different than it ever was. Like when I had tournaments.
You're getting savvy.
Yeah, and games are recorded. You have all those cameras. You can make highlight reels. The only situations that I would say get really bad at my previous institution, I guess there was something called a Finsta, so a fake Instagram. And they would only accept the people that they thought were in their inner circle, and then they could post pictures of themselves. Well, somebody posted a picture on a Finsta and used a substance that's probably not legal or not legal at that age, and it was screenshotted and then sent and stuff like that. And so anything that you post, even if it's to your close friends or Snapchat or whatever, like, it's very easy to screenshot and send it to whoever you want to. Yeah, and it's gonna be out there. And so a similar situation where on someone's probably inappropriate.
You don't have to name names. You can just give examples.
No names, but like a player posted pictures in lingerie, and it's like, okay, like once you come to my school, like, we're responsible. You're still the parent.
As a parent,
but
like, I want to make sure that,
yeah, it's like on their profile it says USC soccer, and then whatever they're posting, the branding kind of falls under that, and so I have to make sure, like, that we bring in people that we know are going to be posting things that are appropriate. I've heard stories about, like, somebody posted one time about not wanting to have a female coach, and so you do have to be careful about what you put out there, because whatever you put out there, and someone used to say the rule is don't put anything on there that you wouldn't want your grandma to see. Yeah, I'm like, that's pretty solid.
Pretty good rule.
So we don't go crazy in looking at it, but it's very accessible, and it does help you get to know each person a little bit more.
Have you ever had an instance where you really loved a player and you saw something that was like kind of like that you had to address, that was kind of a red flaggish type of thing for you in particular, like a person that you guys really wanted or were looking at?
I would say less on social media and more in person. So if someone starts to yell at her teammates, and we understand, like, positive or constructive feedback, like one player that we saw, incredible player, sometimes would talk to her teammates in a way, and you're like, why does she say it like that? And then someone made a really good point. They were like, well, she plays with boys, and maybe boys talk a little more like that. And we're like, okay, that's fair. But if at halftime she's on the bench and she purposely separates herself from the team, if she's on a totally different, like, wavelength, individual agenda, headphones on, and I know they all wear the headphones, and they're cool, but it's cool. It's cool, and they warm up sometimes.
It's an Instagram moment. It's something to put online.
We're trying to evolve, but Someone that feels like it's more about themselves than about the team, and someone who would be disrespectful to teammates, coaches, sometimes even parents. Because, for instance, last year we're traveling the whole year. We were waiting for our stadium to be built. We spent so much time together. So if you have somebody who's rude to others, only cares about herself, puts herself before the team, like it's just not going to work for us. But social media, yeah, it would have to be something that we feel defies. Each school has university policies,
Right.
And they're pretty clear cut. So I would say, yeah, posting something like that would put me in a position to make a tough decision.
In terms of parents, like a lot of times the biggest thing that we didn't really think about, like the radar of college. It's always like a lofty goal when you're going into it. And for Jaden, I don't know, probably didn't even come about till she was maybe like 12 or 13. Because the rest of the time you're just playing soccer.
Yep.
Like you're just playing soccer. We're finding out, is this what she loves? We just love it because she loves it. And she's so into it. But then it comes to a point where now it's like, okay, what are the next steps? You start looking into the future as a parent. You're like, okay, in 4 or 5 years, like college is coming up. Like, does she want to play college? How's that going to go? A new parent or a parent that is kind of having that conversation with their child at that point, what is the best way, in your opinion, to start getting in touch with or in front of or exposure to college in general and different types of colleges?
That's a great question. We do read every single email, and highlight reels are extremely helpful. So if a player sends an email and it doesn't have a whole lot of context, we also, of course, have relationships with most clubs around the country. So we always say at the beginning of that recruiting cycle, we start out really big. And of course, as time goes on, we have to narrow it. Based on knowing what we're looking for makes it a lot easier. And then knowing clubs and teams that match that style and could probably easily transition to our program, that's probably half the battle. But I would say emailing, highlight reels, depending on what club the player plays at, going to these showcases. People always ask the question about camps. Camps are great if you already know you're a good fit for the school. Academically, you're a good fit. You can go, you can kind of live a day in the life, get to know the coaches, and explore the campus, and actually have conversations before like the legal date of talking. Right. But again, like the most important part, I think, on the parent and the player's end in conversation with club coaches is understanding the level that she's at. Academics is very kind of easy and clear cut. You have this GPA, right, sometimes a test score. It's the soccer side that can be a lot more tricky. But having honest conversations, because club coaches, especially if they've been there a long time, they know who goes to certain schools, what level it takes, again, on those four corners. But I would say probably too often, especially when I lived in Florida, like every player wants to go to UF, Florida State, or UCF, and they're willing to be player number 28 on that roster. 2 years later, they end up transferring and they go somewhere where they're actually going to play. I always tell players to make sure you know what you really, really want. If you want to go to a school that's the highest academic university that you can go to, and you don't care about touching the soccer field, then make your decision based on that. If you're somebody who has to play, wants to play, you need to maybe sometimes ask the hard questions either to your club coach or the college coach. Would I be a good fit for this program? Do you see me playing at this point in my career? We try to be honest and outline everything for a player before she gets there. Probably every single player asks, am I going to play my freshman year? And so knowing what you're getting into and knowing where you fit in the plan. And if you're not playing in the first year or two, do you have a development plan for me? Those sort of things. But trying to be realistic and really, which is hard to do, at what your level is and what you want to go to school for.
And so that makes total sense to me, because we've always preached to our kids, like, you got to always be developing, get better. We're just trying to get better. And it's all about competition. So you may be a big fish in a small pond where you are now, and you're one of the top players. But when you get to the every next level you get to, whatever that may be, whether it's from rec to club, from club to not to high school, because club's actually higher, to college, and then college to pros, like the level gets higher and higher and higher, and you have to match that level. And it's all about competing and making sure that you're the right one, to actually be playing, because it's not guaranteed. And so we've kind of instilled that in our kids to make sure you guys understand, like, we always need to be working. And I tell this to all my kids, but I always tell it to my daughter because she is a big fish in a small pond. And I always tell her, I say, there's a girl out there that's much better than you. You just haven't met her yet. And when you meet her,
I haven't either.
and when you meet her, well, that's nice to say. I said, when you meet her on the field and she's going to do something, because as an athlete, I've seen this before. Like, I've played at a high level and I've met that guy. And for whatever reason, whether it's genetics, whether it's he's working harder than me, whatever it is, he's better. And I know it. And he knows I know it. And it's the same thing for all athletes. And I tell her, I go, you're going to meet that person where she's going to do something and you're going to be like, that was really good. Well, how are you going to react? What are you going to do? Like, are you going to just agree, yeah, she's better, and not compete? Or are you going to go after it, compete, and see what happens? Because even though you may lose individual battles, which is what soccer is, from what I'm learning, same as football, it's a long game of individual battles, and whoever wins the most individual battles generally tends to win. In soccer, it could be totally different. We had a game where the other team had one shot on goal and it went in, and we had like 30, and none of them went in, and we lost the game. So totally different. But I always tell her, I go, you're always working on being the best player you can be, and you're going to find those people that are better than you, and you just have to be able to push through it and compete. You don't have to always be the best person. You just have to pursue being the best person that you can be, because we all have limits. Everyone has a limit. There's like, for my daughter, you're quick, you have good speed, you're not a burner. That's your limit. Your hamstrings are not built that way. Your calves are not built that way. Like, some athletes are just built that way, and they're going to outrun you. You're not going to catch a cheetah. It's just the way it is. So you have to adapt to those kind of things. So I totally get what you're saying in terms of knowing where you fit into the model and where you are. That being said, you come into a program, a girl comes into your program, and you guys are working, and she has an expectation of being this kind of player. Like, how often do you find players get in and they have issues adjusting from the club life to college, not only on the field, but even more importantly in life? Because I'm pretty certain that I'm sending my daughter off, she's going to be fine. She's already a little adult because she travels a ton. But there's a lot of people out there that when their kids go off and they're away from mom and dad, like, they don't know how to do anything for themselves. Like, I think there's a fine balance when you get them where you have to kind of help replace those parents in a way, but also replace the parenting side of taking them to that next evolution. Like, hey, you got to get your stuff together on your own. I'm going to tell you what to do, but I can't do it for you like mom used to do. Like, do you find that when you get new girls that come in?
Yes, and exactly what you said, like socially, dorm life, academics, soccer side. An analogy that I like sometimes is on the physical side. When you go from club soccer to college soccer, you're pressing up on the treadmill and you don't get any more breaks. So we actually, in our sports science, map out different plans sometimes for freshmen. And in the pros, they'll do it for older players as well. In terms of social or just life, we used to get texts from freshmen and they would say stuff like, when I go to do my laundry, it says insufficient funds. What do I do? And we're like, okay, here's how you put money on your card, and it costs $1.25, and you got to swipe it, then you got to click wash. So some kids come in and they've been doing their own stuff their whole life, and it's super easy. But I would say if you're looking at all the different aspects, there's definitely going to be some time and maturing that it takes. From a player standpoint, also, Thursday, Sunday games and the wear and tear of traveling, plus the academics, everything, like, probably it's a little harder in college to go to bed on time and to manage yourself. We try to give all the resources that we can. Like, this year, we're going to be using the Whoop bands if they want to opt into it and stuff like that. But it is a lot, and we recognize that. And so sometimes we'll put a freshman in, and the first 5 games she'll look great. As the fatigue sets in, you're like, okay, you can tell she's so tired. She's cramping. Hamstrings are gone. Like, we've got to protect her and hopefully get her back in, a couple games or rest her for a practice. So I actually do believe that they need to be treated differently while still trying to make sure we get to the max that we can, but doing it safely. But yeah, freshmen can be quite funny in terms of, you're like, okay, we've had freshmen before, and Jaden will be a super, super young freshman, but then we've had Ivy League transfers who are 24 years old. So when you're looking at the difference, that is a little more like the pro environment where you have players in their mid-20s because of COVID and fifth years and stuff like that, and a younger player. So we do help try to make sure that we provide some mentorship, either as coaches, but also have players that are going to look out for them and help them with all these small things that probably they're too embarrassed to ask the coaches.
Right. Yeah. My daughter won't be embarrassed. Yes, she's not embarrassed at all. But the one thing I'm always worried about with her is on the educational side, because she's so. The good thing is she's been homeschooling the last couple of years, so she understands like how to prioritize time. But a lot of times, like sometimes when it comes to certain subjects, there's a certain scope that's above what is the understanding of some students, and my student's going to fall into that in some type of class, because not everybody gets it in whatever course that is, right? It's like this thing I understand, I get it, and boom, I'm running. In this one, I'm like, I just don't quite get it yet. I need to be coached up on that. In terms of resources that you guys have, like what can parents expect that these big colleges are going to have in terms of resources, making sure that their kids are staying eligible? Because it is a grind. You know, I played at the University of San Diego. It was much smaller, played there a very short period of time. But in the short time that I was there, like I was dead. Like between practices, between meetings, all the stuff you have to go through. And then you have school, and then you have to find a way to eat in there sometime, right? And then there's zero social life. Like if you want to be successful, like at both things, which is academics and athletics, there's really not a lot of room for social life. There just isn't. What are the types of resources and things that they can expect from universities that are going to help propel their kids to be successful on both sides of the field?
So it starts, I think, with the planning. So we know the times of year that are really difficult for our athletes. Other sports, of course, might have spring season or play more summer ball than we do. So we try to put them in summer school to make sure that during the year, especially during the fall, it's not too academically rigorous, but it's still going to be enough to keep them going towards their degree. We also have to take into account players are going to be gone with national teams as well. And so good relationships with our academic advisor, with the professors. We as coaches, we don't talk to professors ever, but we have someone who does that on our behalf. Players can have tutors and learning specialists as needed. And then we have study halls. So as a head coach, I make sure that I work really closely with academics because it's something I really value. And when they come in as freshmen, they have X amount of hours. And depending on GPA, they can graduate their way out. But we try to give them the structure because sometimes it's hard for them to do it themselves when they don't have the parents looking over them and they don't come home from school at the same time every day. And then here's my homework time and here's my soccer time. For us, we take care of all the soccer stuff in the morning, so they do have the rest of the day. But a lot of it is just self-discipline as well and trying to make sure they minimize distractions when they actually need to sit down and do their homework. But it is challenging. It's really hard.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. And it's funny because I was just talking to Jaden about it, and I said, look, first of all, college is not high school. It's the complete opposite. In high school, you have to be in your seat at a certain time, and you can't leave it at a certain time. Like, and they make sure you get everything in. College is not like that. Like, if you don't show up to class, no one's coming to get you to go to class. As a regular student, as an athlete, might be much different because obviously your coaches are going to hear about it, and then you're going to get in there.
Exactly.
But it's different. It's different when it. So my thing is like when kids go into college, I think it's good for them to understand that it isn't high school. It isn't for those that don't love school. And my daughter happens to be one of those. she and I told her, I go, you just haven't found what you love to learn about yet. Because once just take soccer. If soccer was a class, you'd ace it. You'd love it. You'd be in there all the time. You couldn't get enough of it. I go, that's how you have to kind of look at other academics. Like you got to figure out in the world, like what are you interested in? Because you have to be interested in something. Because even if you have the most miraculous soccer career ever, like there's going to come a time where you don't get to kick the ball like that anymore. You got to do something else. So you kind of have to have that plan. Do you have athletes that are kind of like that? And if so, and this is more of a personal question because I want to know, I need help with helping my daughter find what she's going to be passionate about in school because I want her to get the most out of it. I want her to go to this place. You're giving all these resources, all this opportunity. I want you to take advantage of it. Like, don't just take it for the face value of the soccer, which you're going to get. That's, in my mind, it's such a small piece of what you get when a university is willing to allow you to come there and financially take up for you. Yeah. Like, how do you help those students do that? And have you had experience where maybe students have come in not really into it and then all of a sudden just like took off?
The funniest statement is when somebody comes in and said, I'm taking this class and I really like it and I actually do all the reading. That's how much I enjoy it. And I'm like, okay, that's probably the one for you. we're really fortunate because I think that we have some really cool majors or programs. Like Simone had comedy as a minor, and I'm like, that's really cool if you like stand-up comedy, or
Right.
the cinematography school, sports broadcasting. And so Sugar and I were watching the U.S. game last night, and Becky Sauerbrunn is up there. And
I watched it.
yeah, so she did her training at Annenberg, which is
Oh.
USC's comm school. They brought in a bunch of former national team players and trained them to do that. And they actually, the program looked quite hard. Like they would give them, okay, it's halftime of this game. This is what's going on. All right, boom, go. So they had to practice live and kind of they were put through the ringer. So I think that we have stuff that people find really cool that can kind of find their way within that. But for sure, like they usually start by taking a lot of general eds, and they're like, I hate history, or I hate this, or I've always been really good at math, but I don't really love English. So I think by the time people are juniors or seniors, and I know back when we were in college, by junior year you had to declare, and I think that's really fair. So try what you want in the first couple years, and then hopefully you find something that you at least halfway enjoy or can tolerate.
Right. Yeah, that's the biggest question mark for me and my wife, for at least as a parent, for Jay, is like, okay, we've went through, and your catalog is massive. We were going through it, and I was like, there's more pages of what you guys offer, which is cool. I mean, for me, I'm like, oh my God, they have, with the cinematography background, with the performing arts background, I was like, look at all the stuff you can do, but she's not in that world at all. Like, she has no interest. And then I'm like, well, look at the real estate. Look at you have so much stuff you could do. Like I'm all excited for her, and she's not. She's just like, yeah, well, I got to go to practice or whatever. I'm like, dude, you're not hearing what I'm saying. So we're really excited about what you guys have to offer. And I hope that she finds something there, because I think if she falls in love with that, that's going to help the students that have the ability to move on from college early, stick around for a bit. And I think that's a goal as every parent, is for your kid to get the most out of every opportunity that they are given, and to have an opportunity to go to a prestigious school with all this great academics and athletic prowess that they've had over 100 plus years, like to take advantage of it, and really see it for what it is. And, so I'm excited to see what happens in this first fall semester.
Totally.
Like, I'm excited to see how it goes. You never really know as a parent until you get into it. And then, like, for me, it's always, let's just see how they do. And this is in everything. Let's just see how they do in this sport. And if they love it, then we can tweak from there. So let's tweak it from there. And and now it's good that, our daughter talks to us about that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping that getting there and getting in there and being able to become part of it and all that's going to really excite her. So you got to keep us up to date on how that goes.
Yeah, and
not every day, but on occasion,
totally.
It's just so we feel closer than we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's super good to know from how parents are feeling, and little hints for us, because then we can keep an eye on it and have conversation about it. But I think over time, and especially talking to teammates or other athletes, like, she'll understand what she wants to do. But I was exactly the same. I was like, soccer, definitely not coaching. And as you mature and realize that soccer won't last forever, hopefully, I know Jaden will have a really long pro career, and the opportunities in that for women are just amazing these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, you got to find something when you're a little bit older that fills your time, and whatever you're passionate about is usually what your income comes from. So
Yeah.
you got to find something else, and they will, and they always do.
I was always told. I remember my great uncle told me. He told his kids, and I happened to be there when he was saying it. And they were having a conversation about business and like what business they should start or whatnot. And my uncle said something profound to me at the time. I had no idea what it meant, but it stuck with me all these years. And this was probably at least, 30 years ago. And he told his sons, he goes, all you got to do is just become the best at what it is you want to do, and the money will follow.
Yes.
And so I've ingrained that in my kids, and like, just become so all the opportunities that Jaden's having is because your main, we always say, keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is soccer. So in soccer, what are the things we need to do? We need to be working out. We need to be eating good. We need to be getting strong. We need to be getting fast. And we need to be understanding the game. So all those things you talked about are things that we're doing. Now, I took her to someone who knew that, because I didn't know that stuff. I knew that those were important, but I didn't know what they meant in terms of her sport. But if you're doing those things and you focus on those things, then the money is going to follow.
Yes.
Or the opportunities are going to follow. And then when they come, the dangerous part, and I've seen this recently with players, like just recent, and obviously I never name any names because it's not that type of deal. But some people, they get infatuated with those opportunities and they lose sight of the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the opportunities end up going away because they were only there because of the main thing.
Yep.
Do you see that in players that you get on? Because I'm sure you get top-notch players that come in and all of a sudden they get a little bit more vested in those off-the-field things that come as a result of them being a really good player, and then they kind of lose sight of what they're there for.
That is actually similar to the question you asked earlier, something that we try to look out for in the recruiting process, and you can see a lot of it in the questions that they ask. So if everything that they're asking is about Hollywood or NIL or this or that, you're like, okay, but have they mentioned that they want to be the best player they can? Have they mentioned they want to compete for conference and national championships? I would say I've been super fortunate. Like, we have really, really good kids in our program that, again, do what they love and the money follows. Mm-hmm. My mentor said the same thing to me, and I was like, I felt like you. That's so profound. Like, you just have to do what you love, put in a little bit of time, trust the process, and everything else will work itself out. But I feel a little for the young girls these days because there is so much out there. I'm like, I'm glad I wasn't on my cell phone all the time or worried about, like, building your brand wasn't really something it wasn't a thing. No. And when I first heard that phrase, I was like, whoa, you are building a brand. But yeah, I do hope that people focus on, they zoom out and they think about, who do I want to be? What do I want to give back to the sport? What do I want to give back to the club or young girls that play? Like, how can I be the people that inspired me or were there for me? But yeah, I know it's hard sometimes.
It is. It's difficult. It's a tough thing to do. It's really about, for me, over time, I've had the ability to have amazing coaches and mentors. And more so, my parents were non-athletes. My dad was a baseball player, but he was very, very rarely around. My mom was not an athlete in the least. She was team mom and the most awesome one. She was showed up to everything, did that kind of stuff. But the only reason that we learned how to become really good at athletics is, me and my brothers, is that we had great coaches. Mm-hmm. We had guys that were there for their kids, but we benefited that they were the coaches and they poured into us. And that's why I became interested in being a coach as I stopped playing, and that's how I knew as soon as I had kids, like, my kids were going to have all the advantages that we didn't have, all these lessons. I was like, I got all this information, and I'm going to share it to them and see what I can create, because they were like projects. It's really what they were. They were projects. Like, okay, let's see. And it sucks because the first one, he's always like the person that you kind of learn off of. So you know what I mean? My oldest son is a good athlete. He's just not built for the sport he chose. Had he played baseball or soccer, he would have been much better. But we put him in football. We put him in everything, but he gravitated to that because his dad gravitated to that. So that's kind of where you kind of go. So we tested stuff. I tested stuff out on him, and I was probably way harder on him than I needed to be, and all those types of things. But the next ones, Jaden was the next athlete to follow because Jesse didn't play sports. And then Jonah was the following athlete to follow. And so now I feel like I've accumulated all this really good knowledge from all these great coaches that I was blessed to be put in front of. And I was able to push that off to my kids. And now they're having some level of successes. And I'm hoping that translates down and down and down. What advice would you give to parents to kind of help them set the foundation from your experience in terms of being a coach and being a player at the D1 level? What can they do to put their kids in the best position to be successful?
This may not be the direct reply to your question, but it was all I could think about when you were asking it. And this was actually what I shared with my USC team the day that I got the job. And I kept it private for a really long time because it's a sad situation, but now that it's been out on social media, I talk about it more, and I think it's really important for parents to hear. So my mom, similar to your mom, like, cheerleader on the sideline. She loved doing her hair. She would wear these long dresses to the game. I don't know why, like really nice dresses. And she would just go up and down the sideline and cheer for me and my teammates. She loved my teammates, and I thought that was awesome. But she got sick, and I was about 11 at the time. I was new to my coach, and he was a young English guy. I think he was about 25 at the time. And he was just trying to make his own club, make things work. Incredible coach. But my mom called him in when she knew that she was terminal. Mm. And my coach says, and by the way, I didn't know this until probably 10 or 15 years after it happened. But she called him in and said, I need to meet with you before I pass. And he said, okay. And he says that she grabbed his shirt collar and said, you need to look out for my daughter and do everything that you can, just to help develop her, help her be a great human being. And if she can be a great soccer player, awesome. The reason I think the verbiage that she used was important was she wasn't like, get my daughter into the best college and she has to be on the national team and this and that. And it was more about developing me as a human being and looking out for me and being there for me. So none of us want to think about the day that we pass or whatever, right. Illness and all of that. But if you did have a wish for your child or for somebody to be there in their life, whether it's your wife or whoever, just be there, take care of them, pour into them, love them, be someone they can call, like those sort of things, and not so focused on like, she has to be the best and I'm going to be the crazy parent on the sideline screaming because I think that can help the team win. But
it's that reminds me of the foundation of what it is that I do with teaching and helping parents learn how to work with their children to get the most out of them. It goes back to the foundation about figuring out what the player wants. Mm-hmm. Like, what does your player want? And for us as a parent in that relationship, like, all we want for our kids is to be happy. Mm-hmm. And I always tell it's funny, I don't know if I shared this with you, but I don't know, I might have shared it with you. But we always asked our kids when they were younger, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Mm-hmm. Now, if somebody asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up, what would you say? What do you think the answer would be?
Not a coach. It's hard. Okay, are you asking like when I was a kid?
Just asking if you were a kid. Your mom said, Jane, what do you want to be when you grow up? What would some of your answers be?
What's wild to think about is I couldn't really dream of being a pro soccer player. So I wanted to be Mia Hamm, but there wasn't a league. So I wanted to be on the U.S. national team in a very different form than it is now. But beside that, I was like, I don't know, an FBI agent or a businesswoman that makes money. Yeah,
you want it to be an occupation.
Exactly.
So I heard this at a seminar. I forget where it was. I've gone to tons of seminars for stuff for business, and I heard this young lady say something that was so profound to me at a young age, and I'm so grateful that I heard it at that age because I was raising my kids. They were very young, and then I implemented it immediately. And she basically said that we don't. When I ask my kid what they want to be, it's not an occupation. It's the state of being. Mm-hmm. Like, what do they want to be? Like, well, we all want to be happy. Mm-hmm. Happy can be anything. Happy can be a coach. Happy can be a parent. Happy can be a producer. Happy can be an electrician. It can be anything. It's how you are. It's how you are. So we always taught our kids to be like, I want you to be happy. Mm-hmm. What that is for you, I don't know. We're going to go through this together and figure that out over the next 20 years before you leave my house. We'll figure out what that is to send you out, and that might change over the years. But we want to make sure that you're happy. So when you say that, it makes me happy because that's what all parents want. Mm-hmm. So I think what parents need to understand in terms of the athletic side or this journey of their athlete becoming whatever they're going to become is to really understand that at the end of the day, we just want them to be happy pursuing what it is that they want. And we as parents should pull ourselves out of the equation when it comes to pushing it, not guiding, but just pushing more so, and just figuring like, this is their path, this is what they want to do, this is their lane, this is my lane, this is the plan, we're getting after it, and then we reassess as we go along. And if parents can do that, I think that we would get a much better, you'd have a much better relationship with your child.
Totally.
Than not.
Yep. And just, again, it's what I'm thinking when you're saying that. Probably the number one thing sometimes that people say when they come into our office is, how can I get more playing time because I want to help the team? Very much, I imagine it's the same in boys and men's sports as well. Like, people are seeing their only value is how many minutes they get, how many assists, how many goals they scored, when there's so many more ways to contribute to a team and a program than just that. And also, somebody said this and it hit me really hard. Like, we're living in a day and age where in surveys, student athletes are actually reporting the lowest levels of self-esteem than before. And so parents, coaches, like, I do think it's our duty to make sure that yes, we give them the tactics and we know how we want to defend and all of these things that coaches love, but we also make sure that they're okay as human beings, that they feel like they have support around them, they have people who care about them, that we're not just like, okay, how do we get them to execute what we need to do, but how do we get them in a mental state where they feel good, they're happy, they're confident, they're playing freely. That actually ends up having them perform at the highest level, so
Right.
everybody wins. But certainly, like, I always think of, yes, we want to be happy and we want to be at peace. Like, that's the goal
Yeah.
of life.
That's the goal. And when you talk about the self-esteem aspect, I think that has a lot to do with social media because it has a lot
Totally.
to do with comparison. You're always comparing yourself. So one of the things that I always teach my kids and I teach in my courses, that it's another concept that I learned. Again, everything that I teach was taught to me in some way, shape, or form, right? Just like you as a coach, everything you know, there's an impetus. It started
Yep.
somewhere, Genesis, and you put your spin on it and your flavor to make it come across so you can explain it and express it better. I learned a concept early on about when it comes to self-esteem. So a lot of compliments I would get on my kids is, your kids are so confident. Why are they so confident? And the reason why they're confident is because we implemented what I call the biggest fan method, which is when you ask somebody, again, this is your parent. If you asked your mom, and I know the answer already, if your mom asked you, like, who's your biggest fan, Jane? What are you going to
Yeah,
say?
my mom.
You, mom.
Yeah.
You're my biggest fan. And so we taught, and that's the same answer we got from our kids when they were young. And we started this when Jaden was probably like 4 or 5 when we started it. And we always taught them, like, no, we're not your biggest fan. We could never be your biggest fan. We are a big fan, but we're not the biggest fan. You are your biggest
Yep.
fan. And the reason why we taught them that, and the reason why I learned it, is that when you teach a kid that they're their own biggest fan, it teaches them that their belief in themselves matters more than anything else. And I think when it comes to confidence in kids, is that they feel that they need other people to validate who they are, what they do, and all that. You don't.
Yeah.
You just need to understand what it takes, and that's where parents come in. We show you what it takes to get to where you need to go. If you do that work and you are that person, you don't have to, nobody has to validate you. And that's what makes kids, in my opinion, that's part of what makes kids confident, in
Totally.
my opinion, is that they know who they are. You can say whatever you want. I remember Jaden used to come to me all the time. Jonas says I'm ugly. She's crying. He's calling me ugly. And I would always tell her, are you ugly? No. So who cares what he thinks? And that's kind of how it is that we do. So when you say about like self-esteem, I think that has a lot to do with it, is that if parents can understand how to teach your kids to value their opinion over all others, including mom and dad. Now, we obviously have more knowledge than them at certain points in life, but you have to understand, like, you have to be confident. Like, that, in my opinion, is one of the confidence and communication and consistency are the most things I think that will make anybody successful in anything that they want to do, bar none. Be it sport, be it education, be it job, be it whatever. If you have those 3 things, you will be a successful individual. And that's one of the things that we kind of teach as well. So it's whenever I have conversation with coaches and people, I always hear little bits of philosophy. And I think that, just like you said earlier, you feel like you keep saying the same stuff. The reason why is because it takes what it takes, and it doesn't usually change.
Right.
Like the pillars
It's
of
fairly
success,
simple.
the pillars of success are very simple. It's just we as people tend to complicate them.
I have a mentor, and I consider her like my life coach. And when I talk to her about things, she's like, it doesn't matter what people think. Like, when you stop caring about what people think, you will have so much more energy. I'm like, wow. And like, energy is the most precious resource that we have sometimes. And so I'm like, okay, I need to stop caring. I need to just worry about my team pouring in. And she goes, there's facts and there's feelings. And you know that every word that comes out of your mouth, you're trying to be the best person that you can be. You're not trying to cut people down. You're not trying to be mean. You're not trying to play games. Like, you know what you speak is the truth. So you don't need to worry about all these other things. And like, you're not going to say something that comes out wrong. And I was like, okay, that makes me feel a lot better. If I know where my heart is, and that goes for any person, even a child, like, hopefully they feel freely to speak as themselves. And I always try to think, like, if I'm ever feeling low in confidence or nervous or whatever, I'm like, all I have to care about is pouring into somebody else. So that helps me distract a little bit. And I'm like, if we can just focus on, yes, of course, loving ourselves, feeling confident, but okay, I'm going to help someone else feel the same and be a ladder for somebody else. That helps me a little bit.
Yeah, I know. That's good. there's so much. You just said facts versus feelings. Like in today's day and age, that's a whole different conversation. Like
Everything's
that can
feelings,
go left.
yeah.
That can go left really quickly, but it's true. It's kind of how things are. So I think in terms of what we're talking about, I think that you can fit that in as well and teach your children like, hey, yeah, emotions are part of life, but there are facts that we need to face, and if we deal with those facts, we're going to get on the right path to wherever it is we're going, as opposed to feeling, because we can all be upset about whatever somebody said, like, oh, your first touch is garbage, your this is that. Like, if you say that, it's like they could just be all emotionally distraught, and it's like, okay, so what's bad about it? Like, if it's a fact, what's bad about it? How do I fix it? And how can we move on from here?
Exactly.
Like, get to that fix it mentality, as opposed to like, oh my God, my coach just said this, and then go in your room and cry about like.
It's the same. Jonah's saying Jaden's ugly. It's like there's facts and then there's feelings.
Yeah, exactly. So have you seen yourself? You are not ugly. Your forehead may be a little big as a little girl, but you are not ugly. So anyway, I had an amazing conversation. I have a couple of fun questions that I'd like to have for you. So first, who is your favorite player and why?
That's a really, really good question. And I'm going to give you an old school answer, and it does come partially from my coach. He always had me watch Roy Keane, and he was known just for wearing his heart on his sleeve, being extremely passionate, putting in tough tackles. I love when players play with heart. And again, we've talked about really, really talented players, but then there's those that are talented but also pair it with heart, hustle, willing to do anything for the mission of the team. So that's probably quite a weird answer, but it was someone that I liked to watch when I was a kid.
You know what? You just made me realize something. Do you watch Ted Lasso?
Okay, I have not watched it, but I need to.
You need to watch Ted Lasso, and there's a character on there called Roy Kent.
Yes.
And everything you just described
That's him.
is him.
Yeah.
Now I know that I'm going to go back. Now I'm a nut. I'm going to go back and like look it up, and I guarantee you that's what it is.
That's so funny.
That's so funny. I never put the
real
two
player.
together.
Yeah.
Until you just said that.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's the spinoff or whatever.
it is. I bet you it is. Second question. As a coach, what is worse for you? A player missing an open net or a player missing the pass to a goal? Like making the wrong decision. The player takes the shot as opposed to making the pass. What is worse for you?
That's a good question. My initial reaction is mistakes are human. Like people, you see players respond. There was a player yesterday that missed the goal, and she's like hitting the ground and so upset. And I understand because you want to win. I always feel mistakes. Every single human's going to make mistakes. I've been super fortunate to be part of some of the best players in the world's journeys, and they make mistakes every single day. I love a player who loves to pass, but there is a thing is passing too much. Players, unfortunately, are going to miss the open net, and like you got to forgive them and tell them to move on to the next one. But
so the pass?
So wait, was it a pass?
So either missing the open net
or
the player that misses that pass, which would have been
it's probably that one because. Well, in most cases like that, she's trying to finish for herself.
Yeah.
Whereas you need to take the easiest route for the team to score a goal.
Yeah.
So, yeah, probably the pass.
Got it. Is there anything that you would like to leave anybody watching this podcast, which is generally going to be parents of athletes, just one piece of information that you think is beneficial for them to help their kid get the most out of themselves?
Try to stay calm and relaxed. I think that's when we make our best decisions. And always I loved our conversation beforehand about like preserving the relationship because that is what's most important. Like, I wanted to be an all-time greatest soccer player of all time, and it was never going to happen. I wasn't athletic and big and quick enough. But at the end of the day, like the relationship that I had with my coach and my mom, like that's what is still helpful to this day, even though my mom's not here. Mm-hmm. So, I would say like just making sure that, you don't let the emotions and whether it's the other parents or results, any of that get in the way, because at the end of the day, like I will always remember how my coach made me feel. And that was cared for and valued, and like someone was listening to me and actually cared about making me better in different areas of life. So I know it's hard because we all feel emotions and emotions.
Those feelings get in the way.
Yeah, I'm always like, I feel my emotions really strong, like very visceral, and sometimes to the point like, you know, if I'm nervous about a game or something, I might even feel like a little nauseous or whatever. And I'm like, it's very, very hard to keep your head and your heart and everything calm in those moments. But I do think that's when we make the most level-headed and smart decisions.
I think coaching is a good training ground for understanding that, because as a player, I get super emotional when I'm coaching my son, because that's my sport, and I have expectations of what the kids can do, what he can do, what's being done, and I can go from here to here really fast. And I think when you're coaching, you realize that, especially as a head coach, that the eyes are all on you. How you act is going to speak volumes about your team, your community, and everything. I think that more parents should get involved in coaching to understand how to control that, because you become a much better parent. Like I become a much better parent on the sideline because I'm a coach, because I've been in your shoes, and I know how it feels, and I know all these different working parts that are going on that mom and dad don't see, that we're dealing with, and now they're just seeing the moment of what's happening. So totally understand that.
Well, and I admit, like most people, I'm somebody who enjoys being liked. I'm like, I want people to think that I'm a nice person and all of that. And I do have to make tough choices. And what I always talk to Sugar about is I'm trying to be fair. I'm trying to also hear the voices of my staff and come to the best decisions that we can. And some people may not see that. And when I used to coach club, a mom was so upset because I subbed her daughter before someone else on the team. And I'm like, ma'am, look at what position she plays. If you look at the FIFA data and all of that, like a winger might come off a lot more than a center back. Yeah. So it's not that I think your daughter is worse than the center back. Yeah, it's like different style of running. And I'm trying to make sure, like, if she only gets X amount of sprints per game, that we're maximizing like the time that she can do that while keeping her safe as well. Like a fast player is very quick to pull a hamstring or something like that. So again, just trying to be really fair and know, like, I have a job and my job is to wear the USC glasses and look out for the program the very best that I can. Communication always helps. At the end of the day, we try to tell players, like, our door is always open. You can always come to talk to us. Also, like, realize we're human beings as well. Right. And it can't be every single day that you're coming in saying, why did you sub me out of that drill or something like that? But I will always try to do what I think is fair, and therefore I can sleep at night and I'm not too worried about this and that. And I understand what I do sometimes will upset people, and unfortunately that's part of the job, and I didn't know it really getting into it. Exactly. When I first went from assistant to head coach, I'm like, I'm cool, I'm young, I'm this, I'm that, I got the job. And then a week later I'm like, I'm not cool anymore, actually. And people might not like me.
Yeah, and you realize what it is.
Yeah.
Well, Coach, I had an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for making the time to come in.